The Supreme Court and the presidency have always been locked in a delicate dance, each shaping the boundaries of American power. The court interprets the Constitution, ensuring no branch, including the executive, oversteps its authority. Recent landmark cases are actively redrawing the limits of presidential power with consequences for every American. Under President Trump, these legal battles are unfolding amid deep political polarization and a push to expand executive authority. The questions before the court, about government influence over speech and the independence of federal agencies, strike at the heart of checks and balances. The outcomes will set precedents that define the presidency for generations, altering the balance of power in ways just beginning to emerge. In a unanimous and resounding decision, the Supreme Court declared that government officials cannot coerce private companies to silence speech, reaffirming the core protections of the First Amendment. The justices emphasized that freedom of expression is a foundational right, and government overreach into private speech cannot be tolerated. The case, NRA v. Vullo, rebuked a New York regulator for pressuring banks and insurance companies to cut ties with the NRA, actions the court found crossed into unconstitutional coercion. The ruling made clear that even indirect pressure from officials can violate constitutional rights. This landmark ruling landed as President Trump and his FCC chair were actively pressuring broadcasters, leading to the temporary suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live after critical coverage. The timing underscored the ongoing risks of government interference in media. The Vullo decision now offers broadcasters and media companies a powerful legal shield against government intimidation, reinforcing their independence and ability to report freely. Justice Sotomayor's opinion drew a clear and unmistakable line. Officials cannot use their office to turn private companies into unwilling censors, regardless of political motivation or public pressure. Legal experts say this precedent extends far beyond the NRA, protecting speech in an era of blurred lines between government and private platforms, including social media and tech companies. The court's message is clear. The First Amendment guards not just against direct censorship, but also against government strong-arming of private speech hosts, ensuring a robust marketplace of ideas. It's a vital check on any administration's attempt to control the public narrative, and a reminder that the right to free speech must be vigilantly protected for all. The Supreme Court is now considering a landmark case that could fundamentally reshape the balance of power within the federal government. At stake is the very structure of how federal agencies operate, and whether their independence from the executive branch will continue to be protected as it has for generations. The central question: can a president remove the heads of independent agencies at will, overturning a nearly century-old precedent that has served as a safeguard for agency autonomy and nonpartisan decision-making? President Trump, more than his recent predecessors, has aggressively sought to assert direct control over these agencies, often viewing their independent actions as obstacles to his policy goals and political agenda. The current case began when Trump attempted to remove an FTC commissioner appointed by a previous administration, a move that forced the court to revisit the 1935 Humphreys executor decision, which established limits on presidential power over independent agencies. The court's conservative majority has signaled growing skepticism about the need for agency independence, with some justices openly questioning whether the old precedent still fits today's political realities and calling for it to be overturned. If the court sides with this view, future presidents could gain sweeping new authority to replace officials who oversee antitrust enforcement, labor protections, and financial regulations, potentially shifting the direction of entire agencies overnight. Critics warn that such a shift would turn agencies meant to be impartial into political tools, eroding public trust, destabilizing regulatory systems, and making it harder for agencies to act independently in the public interest. The Supreme Court's decision, expected after arguments in December, will determine whether the tradition of agency independence survives, or if presidential power will be redefined for a new era. Empowered by a Supreme Court ruling granting broad immunity for official acts, the presidency has entered uncharted territory, where the limits of executive power are being redefined in real time. President Trump has begun targeting political adversaries, emboldened by the knowledge that his official actions are now largely shielded from legal consequences. He's publicly pressured his attorney general to indict rivals, using the Department of Justice as a tool to pursue those he perceives as threats. At the same time, he has pushed loyalists into key prosecutorial roles, ensuring that those in charge of investigations are personally loyal to him. Trump appointees have used federal agencies to dig up dirt on opponents, launching investigations that critics say are politically motivated rather than based on evidence. These actions have blurred the line between governance and political retribution, raising concerns about the impartiality of federal institutions. Reports suggest charges against some officials were dropped in exchange for political cooperation, while others who resisted faced mounting legal pressure. Some officials have been forced out of their positions, resigning under the weight of sudden investigations or after being targeted for their lack of loyalty. This aggressive use of federal power is a direct result of the court's immunity ruling, which has fundamentally altered the balance between the branches of government. The ruling shields official acts from prosecution, but leaves open the crucial question of what truly constitutes an official act and what crosses the line into abuse of power. Legal scholars and commentators now debate what counts as an official act versus a political vendetta. The answer remains deeply contested. Trump appears to treat any action from the Oval Office as protected, asserting that his decisions, no matter how controversial, fall under the umbrella of presidential authority. Meanwhile, critics warn this interpretation turns a constitutional safeguard into a license for political persecution, undermining the very checks and balances designed to protect democracy. The boundaries of presidential power and accountability are being tested as never before, with the nation watching closely. The consequences of this new legal landscape are already reshaping American governance, leaving the future of executive authority and democratic norms uncertain. The Supreme Court's own justices have sounded alarms about the dangers of expanding presidential power. In the 2024 immunity case, dissenting justices warned that shielding presidents from prosecution could create a leader above the law. Justice Sotomayor called the decision a threat to the principle that no one, not even the president, is above the law. Justice Jackson warned the ruling plants the seeds of Caesar, evoking fears of unchecked executive authority. These dissents highlight a deep divide. The conservative majority favors a powerful unitary executive, while the liberal wing insists on robust checks and balances. Their warnings now seem prophetic as Trump's actions mirror the very abuses they feared. Critics argue the president is using immunity as a green light for retribution, confirming the dissenters' worst predictions. The debate over executive power is no longer theoretical, it's playing out in real time. The Supreme Court's recent decisions are shaking the foundations of America's checks and balances. If the court allows presidents to fire independent agency heads at will, it erases a firewall between politics and regulation. Agencies like the Federal Reserve and SEC could become tools for rewarding allies and punishing foes, eroding impartial oversight. The immunity ruling has also weakened the judiciary's ability to hold presidents accountable for official acts. Combined with Trump's willingness to pressure the Justice Department and install loyalists, the impartial administration of justice is at risk. Congress, too, loses power as agency heads become extensions of the president's will, making oversight less meaningful. These shifts don't just empower the president, they threaten the balance designed to prevent any branch from dominating. The system's promise of equal accountability is under strain as never before. We are witnessing a fundamental transformation of the American presidency, forged by the Supreme Court. Recent rulings have given the president more direct, unchecked power than ever before, shielding official acts and potentially dismantling agency independence. President Trump's emboldened approach, pressuring opponents, demanding loyalty, and using federal agencies as political tools, reflects this new reality. The Vullo free speech ruling stands as a rare check, but the broader trend is toward consolidation of executive authority. Future presidents, regardless of party, will inherit these expanded powers, making the office more formidable and volatile than ever. The nation now faces a defining question. Will it remain a system of checks and balances, or move toward a presidency with few restraints? The Supreme Court's decisions are charting the course for American democracy's next chapter.